Good morning everyone. Today I am here to discuss something regarding advanced imaging. These are the various MCQs previously asked in the various entrances. They may ask regarding CBCT, they may ask regarding digital imaging, they may ask questions regarding orthopantomography, and they may ask regarding MRI, various types of sensors used in digital imaging, regarding the scientists, and regarding the basic equipment which is used for digital imaging, and advantages, disadvantages, the terminology used. Now let us go into the subject of advanced imaging. After the discovery of X-rays by Roentgen in November 8, 1895, it has got into various stages of development. From the film, now it has developed into digital. Digital radiography, either it can be direct or indirect. Direct digital radiography is where the image is formed immediately in the system. In indirect digital imaging, it requires a separate step where we need to process the image using a scanner, where we get a digital image. There are various types of digital image sensors. They can be broadly classified into solid state technology and photostimulable phosphor plates. In solid state technology, charged coupled devices are used, whereas in charged coupled devices, complementary metal oxide semiconductors and flat panel detectors are used. These are all direct digital imaging receptors, CCDs, CMOs and flat panel detectors. Whereas photostimulable phosphor plates, it comes under indirect category. The one important thing which we need to remember here is the direct and indirect words are also used in another context, where the direct refers to if the sensor is directly sensitive to X-rays, then they are called as direct digital sensors, and if the sensor is sensitive to visible light which is produced after the exposure by X-rays, then it is called as indirect digital sensors. If we see here, the electron in the valence band, when it gets excited, it gets transmitted to the conduction band. This excitation is caused because of X-rays. And because of the transfer of electrons from the valence band to the conduction band, the semiconductors become conductors. Because of the conduction of electricity, it results in some voltage potential, and this voltage potential is transferred from one element to the adjacent element, and this transfer of charge takes place in a bucket brigade fashion. This is which is very important. We need to remember the bucket brigade fashion. Bucket brigade fashion happens because of horizontal and vertical clocking. If you see here, this is vertical clocking and this is horizontal clocking. This type of bucket brigade fashion of transfer occurs in CCD sensors. For example, if we consider raindrops are the voltage differences which are collected in individual units of a sensor, then these raindrops are transferred by horizontal clocking and vertical clocking in a bucket brigade fashion into a serial of bucket array, where it is finally transferred into a calibrated measuring container, which measures the amount of voltage difference that obtained. These CCD sensors, they are available as linear arrays and area arrays. Linear array is used in orthopantomography and cephalography, whereas area array sensors are used in RVG. CMOs, there is a small basic difference in CCDs and CMOs. In CCDs, the charge transfer takes place by bucket brigade fashion, whereas in CMOS this charge transfer takes place from individual unit separately through a transmitter through analog to digital converter where the image is formed. So there is no bucket brigade fashion in CMOS. Bucket brigade fashion is seen only in CCDs. Flat panel detectors are very costly. They are generally used in extraoral medical radiography and also in CBCT. PSP system contains barium fluorohalide, which is very important. Eurobium doped barium fluorohalide is the active element in photostimulable phosphor plates. This is the cross section of a PSP plate showing barium eurobium doped barium fluorohalide. Here in this, a small difference exists between the CCD CMO system and PSP system. Here in this, when the electron in the valence band, it gets stimulated by X-ray photon, the electron from the conduction band, it moves from the conduction valence band into the conduction band, and it doesn't come back immediately. There it stays in the F center. This F center is very important for the processing in the next step. In this step, eurobium gets converted into +2 to +3. In the next step of processing, a laser of red light made up of helium neon provides a red light to activate this electron in the F center. Then it goes back to the valence band. Then it releases a green light. This green light is captured by a photo multiplier tube, and then it is transferred to analog to digital converter, where depending upon the amount of intensity of the light emitted, the picture is formed. Digital subtraction radiography also comes under digital imaging, where the two different X-rays are superimposed over one another and the subtraction is done. Before doing this, they should be geometrically equal, and after subtraction, depending upon either new bone formation or loss of bone, there will be a grayish change in the subtracted image. If we see here, there is some grayish change seen over the third image. It is because of the new bone formed. So the loss is seen as a radiolucency and the gain is seen as a radio opacity in subtraction imaging. Next, going to panoramic radiography. Panorama means an unobstructed wide-angle view of a region. In panoramic radiography, we see an unobstructed wide-angle view of a region where we can see all the teeth of maxilla and mandible. In panoramic radiography, if we see here, there is a slit beam collimator in the source, and it allows only a slit shaped beam, and there is a slit shaped opening on the film. So when a slit shaped beam reaches from a distance onto a radiographic film, which moves through the slit shaped passage, results in formation of an image of a section. So it is called as orthophantomography. In orthophantomography, ortho means straight, pan means total, tomography is sectioning. So it is a sectioning image of a total teeth in a straight plane. This is the normal imaging for intraoral radiography, whereas in panoramic radiography, the X-ray source lies behind the patient and the X-rays enters the patient through the below the occiput at a negative angulation of -4 to -7 degrees. Focal trough is an imaginary three-dimensional curved zone in which the structures are clearly demonstrated on a panoramic radiography. So the structures which are not in the focal trough are blurred, so that only the structures in the focal trough are clearly demonstrated. If we see here, the structures in the focal trough are clearly seen, as there is no blurring. But whereas here the teeth are positioned just anterior to the focal trough, this resulted in diminished image with blurring. And here the structures are positioned posterior to the focal trough, this resulted in a magnified image with blurring. So in order to see the structures clearly, the structures should be in the focal trough. Just imagine that the skull is opened up from behind and it is placed on a straight line. That is how an orthopantomographic image is formed. From just behind the spine, overall the skull is opened up and placed on a single plane. If we see here, that is the reason why here the spine is divided into two parts, resulting in two different images. These are called as real double images. And the jaw, which is curved, is formed in a straight plane. Here the important part is you should know the concept of ghost images and why they are formed and how they will be. If we see here, these are the ghost images of the earrings. This is the zone where the ghost images are formed. And these ghost images are formed only when the highly radio opaque object is present between the source and center of rotation. This is the center of rotation and this is the source. So the earrings which are placed between the source and center of rotation resulted in formation of a ghost image. And the formed ghost image will be larger compared to that of the original object, and they will be positioned at a slightly higher level because of the negative angulation. So in a panoramic radiograph there will be real images and ghost images, and in real images there will be single images and double images. In orthopantomography, we not only see the hard structures but also the shadows of soft tissues. If we see here, these are the here we can see the ear lobule, here we can see the shadow of the tongue, shadow of soft palate. Not only the soft tissues, we can also see the air shadows. Here this is the oropharyngeal airway, oropharynx, nasopharynx. If the tongue is not positioned properly, we may see a air shadow between the tongue and palate in this region. These are the various landmarks seen on the orthopantomographs: a condyle, coronoid process, pterygomaxillary fissure, orbit, nasal fossa, pterygoid plates, mental foramen, inferior border of the mandible, zygomatic process of maxilla, maxillary sinus, nasal septum, These are the various bony landmarks. These are the ghost image of the opposite side of the mandible, soft palate, tongue, shadow of the tongue, posterior wall of the pharynx, inferior nasal concha, inferior nasal meatus and middle meatus. Patient preparation is very important. Here in this radiograph, if we see, the patient has not removed the eyewear, which is seen in this radiograph. And the important thing which we need to remember is the lead apron should not be worn in orthopantomography, because the thyroid dose or the gonadal dose is very less in orthopantomography. But in case if you want to wear a lead apron, it should not cover the nape of the neck, because the X-rays will pass through the nape of the neck just below the occiput. So it results in formation of a radio opaque shadow of this lead apron over the body of the mandible. So instead of this type of lead apron, we have to use a Ponko type of lead apron. This is the lead apron which has to be used. Now we need to see the differences between CT and CBCT. What is the basic mechanism of working in CT? The CT principle and demonstration was done by Godfrey Hounsfield, for which he was awarded Nobel Prize in 1979. In CT, there will be a source of X-rays and there will be multiple detectors. In earlier days, there was a single source and a single detector. The source emits a pencil shape of beam and the single detector will revolve around the patient for multiple times, resulting in formation of an image. This resulted in a very high radiation exposure to the patient. But in latest generation of CT scanners, there is a fan shaped beam which is emitted by this X-ray source, and this fan shaped beam is detected by various detectors. So an X-ray image is formed within fraction of a second. So if we see here, as it rotates around the patient, and it results in formation of an image. Reconstruction results in formation of an image with various grayscales, and these grayscales contain a smallest picture element called pixel and smallest volume element called voxel. Whereas in cone beam computed tomography, instead of a fan beam, we use a cone shaped beam, and CT can be used for imaging any part of the body, but cone beam CT is especially used for imaging the head and neck region. Here, instead of multiple detectors in a single line, we use flat panel detectors. It results in images which are similar to that of CT images, and here we can form multiplanar reconstructions and three-dimensional reconstructions. Proton is a little magnet because of its charge. These protons are aligned in various directions, and when a magnetic field is positioned, these protons, they align either parallel to the magnetic field or in a reverse direction to the magnetic field. And when a radio frequency pulse is passed, this magnetic vector, it changes from the longitudinal magnetization vector to a transverse magnetization vector. When it changes from longitudinal magnetization vector to a transverse magnetization vector, the magnetic vector is calculated using a receiver coil, and depending upon the signal, an image is formed. Generally, liquids, they have a long T1 and T2 time, whereas fats, they have a short T1 and T2 time. Before contrast, we have T1 and T2 imaging, and after contrast by gadolinium, we will be having only T1 images, and all these T1 and T2 images, they can be reformatted in various planes as sagittal, axial and coronal. This is the T1 image and T2 image. If we see here, this is the subcutaneous fat which is seen in a T1 image as a bright, and whereas in T2 image this is the cerebrospinal fluid which is seen as bright. So the liquids, they generally fluids, they appear bright in T2 imaging. Fat, it appears bright in T1 imaging. Thank you.